All right, I've started the recording. For anyone that is here live, I want to welcome you to our class. Today's inspiration is our Forest Fox Run. It's just a really beautiful, simple winter scene that has some just really elegant, like vector style trees in the background, with some birches, and then we'll put a fox on top. We could make tonight's class very detail oriented if we wanted to, if you look at the inspiration, which I'll drop into the chat window for everyone, but we can keep it really simple as well. I'm going to be fairly simple in the background with like layering the trees, and we'll try to spend more time with the fox in the foreground since that's a prominent feature. One of the things that I did different for tonight's class, welcome Jenny, is I used painter's tape to kind of tape off an area. So doing that in general is always an option for you to consider. So I'm painting on canvas paper tonight, like I usually do in these classes, ladies. And then I use painter's tape. Sometimes we tape off a rectangle or square, or even just leaving a thin border around. But tonight I kind of taped off a pennant. Kind of it's a different shape just to see how it looks. You don't have to do this tonight. If you want to try it, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So I was doing it just to try something different. So I'll be painting within. And yeah, we'll get started in just a couple minutes. I have the basic supplies with me tonight, nothing fancy. I have a pencil handy nearby just in case we need it. We may want to do a little sketching for the fox, like on top of everything after. So we'll kind of put our pencils to the side for right now. But we'll typically start in the background like we usually do, and we'll paint our way to the foreground of the picture. I was tempted tonight, ladies, to use my watercolors, and I was like, whoa, pump the brakes. You're getting a little too eager here for a Sunday. I didn't give anybody a heads up. So maybe one day, over the next couple months, I'll say I'm going to use watercolors just to like give people a heads up. If anybody wants to be playful with watercolors with me, we could do that together. But I was cleaning my studio and I found my watercolors and I was like, ooh, I found them. I want to use them now. I like, I had an idea of where they were, but I actually surfaced them and they're sitting next to me. So that's super fun. So I have just my basic acrylic paints tonight. I'm using like basic Blick paints tonight. I'm not using any fancy acrylics. As some of you might have some of these Reeve paints, these are a little higher quality than some of the other paint that I use. So you can really, again, use whatever you have on hand. And you can be resourceful on, using up the rest of a tube or this or that. Sometimes it's fun to work with that. The brushes I'll be using for tonight is this like 1/2 inch brush that I use in typically all these classes. You're going to want a small, tiny brush, like a 2/0 fraction brush, a nice small detail brush for the fox. And then a couple of medium-sized brushes. Whatever you got is fine. If you have anything in between, like a 5 or like a flat tip 4, these are all really helpful too. So use whatever you have on hand. But we'll jump right in and get started. I hope everybody had a nice weekend. So great to see you. I just posted the February dates in Patreon, so be sure to take a look at that. I will drop the inspiration in the chat window as well right now. So let me do that for you before we begin. All right. Let's see here. And I'm excited to do this fox. We'll keep the background fairly simple, which I think will be really nice. And we're going to be using greens. We'll be doing like a minty green background to start. And then we'll be doing 2 different kind of forest-like trees. So I love this. I love minty green as a color. It's really fun. We'll do our best to make it together as a group. I'm going to reuse this palette here. So we'll jump right into making like a minty green for the background. If you wanted to, whatever colors you mix and blend along the way, just go with your gut, use colors that you like. So if it's not exactly like my color, don't worry. But if you have a green on hand, feel free to grab it. I'm going to make a green from scratch just in case folks don't have a green. But to make a green It is yellow and a tiny bit of blue. So I put yellow on my plate here. And I'm going to put a little blue nearby. And if anyone has any questions as we get going, don't hesitate to ask. But we'll make a minty green, we'll make a sage green, whatever you kind of come close for. And a little blue is going to go a long way. So I'm just going to start by mixing a green, and we'll definitely add some white to this. So take your time mixing a green of choice. If you happen to have like a teal nearby, you can see what other colors you might have in your collection. We're going for like a light green for the background. So if you look at the inspiration, we're going for a light green. So this is kind of a lime green right here. And that color in my picture is pretty close to in person. I have a little bit of white. And if you have like a very yellowish green, just add a little bit more blue. And it'll pick up for you. So then just take your time and find a minty kind of background green that you like. It may not be minty, it may just be like a lighter color.
Did you add some white to that too?
I just did here. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my.
I do have a little teal, so I might put a little teal in. So you if anybody has extra random paints around, sometimes you could play with what you have. This is a sage color. This sagey green is fine if you don't get this teal color. So just, again, use what you have here. I have a little bit of a teal. Let me see what I can get by adding just a little bit of this to it. See if it will give me what I want. It may or may not work, but we can do our best. Let's just see what happens here. A little experimentation doesn't hurt. So I just put a tiny dollop of teal over here, and I'm just going to mix it in just to see what happens. Yeah, it's getting a little bit more bluish green. See what happens here. And mix as much as you think you're going to use. You don't need a ton. Maybe you just add a little bit more blue, ladies. Let's just try adding a little bit more blue to this. I might also just
keep it light, right, Megan?
you want it light in color. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
going to be a really light background. Exactly. Very light. So once you have like the color you like, so I added a little bit more blue, ladies. That helped a lot. But this is fairly light in color. The trees we're going to put on top are going to be much darker. So this light color is perfect. The next thing you're going to do once you have this color is you can draw your land or your ground. We're going to have quite a bit of sky because we're going to have big trees. So the ground is basically where your fox is going to be. So imagine, let me find an object here. I'll use my phone, I guess. My phone's too big. I'll use my little Buddha. Say my fox is sitting right here. This is the ground, okay? That means I want my ground. If my fox is centered here, right? I want my ground to be like right here, right? And this will all be snowy white. Now I could add more like snowy hills like up here if I wanted to, but you kind of get the gist. I'm planning for tall trees in this space. My fox will go here in the center. Okay. So I'm just going to do a line. I can always add like snow or whatever on top of this. It's just a layer, so no big deal. But I'm just going to paint this all light green. And I'm going to put my trees on top of it. So this is just a solid color for our sky. Now this is more of a sagey green. If I wanted to make it more blue, I could keep adding blue to this, ladies. But I'm just kind of going with the flow. So you can make this as light as you want. You can bring in more white, but we're going to put some dark trees on top. So as long as it's on the lighter side, you should be fine. but I'm just doing nice smooth brush strokes. I'm not doing anything fancy here with regards to color blending. I'm just adding in paint. We're going to put a lot of trees here, so maybe I use a little water just to kind of spread it out a little bit if you wanted to. If you don't want to, it could just be solid color with no streaks and things. And I'm doing horizontal brush strokes, but you're welcome to do vertical brush strokes if you wish. Just pick a consistent brush stroke and just use that for the entire background. And I'm excited about this one. This is all greens. Green is such a beautiful color, and we're going to be mixing different tones in here. And of course I ran out of the paint, so I'm going to have like a little ombre situation happening here, which is always fun. So if you see my colors change, this is me rolling with it. It's okay if your colors change a little bit, but I'm going to try to blend them one into another here. It doesn't matter. We're going to have lots of trees here anyways. Can barely notice. So I'm like zipping right along here. And the reason I like demonstrating is not being afraid to put that paint right on your canvas. You can't really mess this part up. We're just painting a nice solid coat for that background. And it's fairly thin paint. So if anybody feels like you're using like a lot of paint and it's like really, really wet, just work that color from the left to the right and kind of, it will help move it around if it's too heavy in one area or another. Because the more paint there is on your canvas, the longer it's going to take to dry, which can be troublesome if if you need to paint on top of it. So I'm just going to make a little bit more of this paint. I ran out. I didn't take my own advice of making too much, making enough. Typically happens that way, doesn't it? We always run out. So mine is more of, like a lighter sage green. It's a little brighter than a sage, but it's all right. It's going to look nice with some dark green trees. So whatever lighter green you have, it should be just fine for tonight's class. Now, anyone that's painting the full canvas or has like a bigger block to paint than me, you're probably still painting. So just take your time. Sometimes when you tape off a window to paint within, you kind of go through it a little more quickly. And I'm not going to peel off my tape until the end. So make sure I don't do that. All right. So I'm going to let that dry. And the other thing we can do is while this is drying is we can kind of do some of our snowy area down on the bottom. So I have a little bit of white paint right here. So if you don't have white paint on your plate, feel free to grab some. I'm going to put a tiny touch of black on my palette as well. Just a little dot. You don't need too much. And that's if we want to make any gray for our snowy area. Now, what you can do with the snowy area is you can kind of create a little hill or a little mound. You can kind of do like you can do a little hill in the background here. You could do another hill in the foreground just to kind of create a little bit of layering for the foreground. Now, I don't want you to come down here with any white until this bottom area is dry. For me, it's fairly dry. So I'm just going to clean off my brush because this top part is painted. And I'm going to let the green background dry. And I'm going to shift. I have a little bit of white right here on my brush. If anybody wants to like take a little bit of black and like make a gray kind of nearby, you can be playful, and I'll bring this close. You can be playful with having like a little bit of white paint and a little bit of gray, which is really fun. And you can be playful with your hillside here. So your hillside can be gray or it can be white. So I'm doing a little gray. I'm kind of just changing the layer on this line a little bit. And then maybe I'll come down. So You can you can be playful of like how you bring white in and how you bring gray in to this space down here. But I kind of made a little hill over on the right. This is a very subtle detail in our picture. And I did it with a gray paint. That's why it looks a little darker. But you can be playful with and then bringing in a little bit of white to like blend into the gray. But the white is reflecting on the snow, is like the snow. So you can kind of see how I can use the white to kind of taper down and blend into the gray. Is everything okay?
Oh, sorry.
It's
I
okay.
can't get these things open like this.
Your paints?
These.
Oh, I know, they're so hard. You have to, I'll teach you the trick again. It's the left tab will open the top. So the right tab doesn't do a darn thing. And it's your thumbnail under the left tab.
Thumbnail under
Um,
the.
thumbnail under the left tab and hold the bottom firmly. Yep. And I've had people, Susan, oh my gosh, they're like, I needed to get a fork. People are so vocal about how they open those damn containers and their fingernails don't do it. So funny. You guys were probably, you all were probably on those calls, and these ladies are just like, I had to use a butter knife. It's so funny. I just like laugh. It's so funny. I'm like, that is very resourceful of you. Good work.
When I do that, I end up with paint everywhere.
I know. It's a little tricky. Sharon, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him drink it.
Right?
Ah. So ladies, just have fun. Just use a little bit of a delicate hand. You can see I'm just playing with bringing in a little white, bringing in a little gray. I'm just creating some really soft, kind of snowy tears down here on the bottom. And this is allowing our background on the top to dry. You can play with bringing in a little more gray if you want to. I'm going to keep it fairly simple down here. I could add in a little bit of extra gray kind of along the edges since I'm doing a pennant. So if I wanted to get a little fancy, I could just do a little bit of extra gray on the edging, kind of like a shaded border because I have a white background, right? And I have this tape down. So I'm adding just a little bit of extra gray, just so it stands out against like the white itself, like on the background here. So that's just like a very little thing. I'm sure we'll be able to see it, but if not, it's no big deal. So I might just add a little bit more gray down here due to the fact that I have tape that I'm going to peel off after. So if mine looks a little more shaded, I'm doing that intentionally because I have the tape today. But you can change brushes if you want to. You can see how some of my hillsides here are angled. Some of my lines are more angled. You can have straight lines. You can have a little bit of a bend or curve. Doesn't matter. This is your space, but it's really just like a forest outdoor scene. So it can look anything that you want to down here. Susan, did you get it open?
No, I used another one I had.
Okay.
Nope, that one's still.
Just wants to stay shut.
Yeah.
That's all right. Let it be.
Yankee women are very resourceful.
Yeah.
All right. So take a couple minutes. We want your backgrounds to be dry up here, the green, because we're going to do trees there next. And I just want you to get in some of the white down here for the bottom. I'm probably not going to do anything else down here, ladies, for the snow. I'm keeping it simple because I'm putting a fox on top of it and I'm going to put some birch trees. So I'm keeping it simple tonight, lots of layers. And I'm cleaning my brush. And then when you all are good, in a minute or two, we'll pivot to do our trees and we'll make some greens together. So take your time. And we're gonna make 2 colors of green. It's gonna be really fun. Do you ladies have green paint on hand? Or are you making green from primary colors?
Both.
Okay. So I'll make, you use whatever colors you have on hand. I will make the greens from scratch, just in case folks on the recording need to make it from the primaries. So I'm going to put this here gently. For these trees, I'll slowly talk about them as you're transitioning and finishing up the bottom. They're like a dark sage green color. So you can choose what you want these trees to be. There is a dark tree and there's a darker tree. So the darkest tree is going to be like a forest green, right? So you don't want it to be black, but you want to see that it's a dark green. And then you can choose what you want the other color of the tree to be. We do want there to be contrast. So we do want them to be on the darker side. But I'll let you pick and choose what you want that color to be. So the first thing is let's just start with a green that you like. I could go for like a bluish green or something. So the fox is orange. So blue and orange are complementary colors. So I'm mixing a little bit of blue with green. You can be playful here with what colors you want to add. But make a color green that you want for the first tree first. Like, don't worry about what the two colors are. Just pick out the first color initially first. So be playful, mix some colors around. For anyone that has just basic primaries, I made this color with just more blue than yellow. So that's why it looks more like Kelly green, is because I just added more blue to it than yellow. I'm going to make more of this because I'm thinking ahead here. Because I don't want to run out. Imagine that. And we're going to use this color to make it darker for the secondary tree, if that makes sense. So whatever color we start with, make enough of it so we can add a tiny touch of black to it to make it darker for the second tree, if that makes sense. So we're doing two different kind of styles of trees. Well, not two different styles, two layers of trees, an initial green and then a darker green. And you can check, like, so this is my background. Is this dark enough? I think it's dark enough. Should be all right. Right? It's contrasting enough. What I could do is I could make it a little grayer. So if you like the grayish look of these trees, I'll show you what it's like to make this a little bit more gray. You can take a tiny dot of black. A little bit of black will dull the color down. So use black to dull it, but then you can use white, ladies, to re-brighten it. So I'll mix this with you. I like this grayish green, so I'm going to make this for you. So you can see it got darker. It's okay, because guess what? I can add a little bit of white to lighten it. See how it got a little grayish? Really pretty color. But I can use a little white to lighten. Just a little bit. And you can see it's just a little bit more gray in color, which is more similar to the color of these trees in the inspiration. So sometimes you have to kind of think, do I want a bright color or do I want a more dull shade, right, of a green? And to create that more dull gray-like shade, I added a little black and I added a little bit of white to get this really nice looking color. So it's a nice consideration. Sometimes we think about what shades we want when we paint. Sometimes we don't, but this is a good example of considering what shades to use based on, what you're painting, who you're painting for, if you have an idea, you see something you like, whatever, doesn't matter. So I have plenty of that. So we're going to keep these trees pretty straightforward. You can decide what brush you want to use for these trees. I have a brush that is in fairly good condition. This is my kind of 1/2-inch flat tip brush. I'm going to be painting with the side of this brush because it's more narrow. So if you don't have a brush with kind of narrow like brush strokes, you can switch. But what we're going to do is we're going to do, and I might switch in a minute here. We'll see how this goes. But I'm going to do different we'll do tree trunks first. So we're gonna stagger the heights. So I'm not gonna go all the way up to the top. But I'm gonna do tree trunk down. I do have space above this tree. It's not very even, but it's okay because I'm gonna fill my whole tree in. It's gonna be solid in color. And then I'm just gonna come over a little bit, come down, and the height is gonna be a little lower on this one. And I'm probably gonna do 5 of these trees, ladies. So I'm gonna stagger them all over, and I'll make the tops of these trees a little pointier with a smaller brush. Excuse me. There we go.
So we're starting all the trees with the same color.
These ones. Yep. We're
Gotcha.
gonna layer darker ones in front of these, Jenny.
Ah, okay, thank you.
Yep,
That's
I
what
got you.
was-
I got you.
Yeah, you did.
No worries. So if you want to switch to a smaller brush, you can. But ladies, these are just gonna be, ladies and gents, these are just gonna be like long. They're gonna be trees just really simple with coming down, and I'm gonna fill these in fairly plain like this. I'm gonna switch to a smaller brush so I have a little bit more control. I'm gonna switch to like a number 5. So I'm gonna do really basic trees. I'm not gonna do, airy trees, but I switched to a number 5. You can kind of be playful with some of your branches, but they're gonna be totally solid in color in the middle. Again, I'm going simple today because we're gonna put snow on top of these. We're gonna cover a lot of them up, but these are just details kind of in the distance. So these are just kind of full pine-like trees in the background. Nice and easy. And if you don't want to paint the trees all the way down to the bottom too, you can kind of leave some of the trunk showing. Optional. It's kind of nice doing easy trees once in a while. A little less threatening. You can do short branches and long branches. And I'm just painting these in nice and full in color. If you want to use different colors on these trees, feel free. But we're gonna layer in darker trees on top for a secondary contrast to answer Jenny's point. Okay. And these trees can have a little bit of a point on top. And I'm alternating. Just find a style that works for you. We're going to put a lot of snow in this scene, and we're also doing birch trees layered on top. So if I'm moving pretty quickly, we're not going to spend a ton of time on these trees. These are just a detail in the distance. Because we're going to do layered of birch trees as well on top of the darker trees. So we're going to go pretty quickly through these background trees. But all these details they'll come through at the end. So it's kind of worth just adding in a few different layers. And these trees, if you want them to flare out a little bit on the bottom, they can. These are pretty straightforward tonight. And there's gonna be a lot of things layered on top. That's why I'm just really getting these basic colors down. And if you have gaps in between some of these trees, no big deal, because we're doing darker trees layered on here next.
I went a little tree happy on the last one. I actually went in and covered over a couple of them.
You did? That's
I
so funny.
did around the moon. It was nuts. When I sat back and looked at it, I was like, okay, now that looks a little different.
It is fun though, like making modifications, like going in after. I love doing that. Like when I have the time, it's really satisfying.
That was kind of the first time I did that.
Like that type of layering.
Yeah,
Or like
back
going back
and
in.
changing, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the water and
Your
the
water looked
trees.
great. The adjustments you made were really beautiful.
Yeah, I liked it better thinner.
You just changed the shape and the positioning. Yeah. You kind of
Yeah.
moved it to the left. It looked really nice. I love it when that happens. It's like, oh, imagine that.
My mom said we were missing tree reflections in the water, so I've been looking at mine, thinking about.
Yeah,
doing
you
that.
could. You could totally
Yeah.
add them. That's the thing. Like with art, you have all these choices, right, Sharon? Like what you want to add, and like if somebody be like, oh, it's something's missing, and it's up, it's up to the artist. Hey, if you want to add it, feel free to add it. All good.
I've been looking at it. I haven't decided yet.
I know. So funny. There was something I was going to add to mine or fix. I can't remember what it was. I haven't touched it yet, but it's out. And I was going to hang it on my studio wall. But I was, you kind of want to like refine it and make your adjustments before you put it up, kind of thing. But I did hang my A-frame, my pink cabin. That was unique enough to go up on my wall, ladies. All right, so these ones are plugging away. I did 5. Well, I'm doing 5. I'm on my 5th tree now. Again, I'm not spending a ton of time. I'm just getting these base colors in, and I'm gonna rinse and repeat, and I'll probably put in 3 or 4 dark trees layered in. So they can go in between. You can figure out where you might want to put them in. And you're just basically going to take the green that you just used, and you're going to add a little bit of black to it, or add a little bit more of blue just to make like a darker color. Many artists don't use black. They use just the primaries to kind of make the changes. So if you want to make it more blue, you could make it more blue. If you want to be a little more precise with these trees, these are very much like 4th grader trees tonight. You can grab a smaller brush and you can, make the points of your trees a little bit more refined. You can add some more sticks. You all know that we do a lot of different types of trees in these classes. So you can be as finite as with these details as you want to be. I wasn't going to spend a ton of time on these because of the other additional layering that we're doing. But I can just make a few adjustments. Okay. And the bottoms for me are like fairly I'm not doing a ton of work down here yet because I'm going to do these bigger trees next. So I have this green that I created for these trees. I'm going to take a little bit of black, ladies, and you can use blue if you want to, and I'm just making a darker color. I could even grab a little bit of blue just to show you what it looks like and put the extra blue in here. Excuse me. So I have black and blue, and I love playing with color so everybody can see what it looks like. We just want them to be darker, and if they're more blue, then whoop-de-doo. So that's a little darker, right? You want it to stand out against the other ones. So it's kind of nice that we're doing this next to each other because you can see if I need to make it darker or not. Guess what? For me, I do. And I did add a little extra blue here. That's why it has an extra kind of teal hinge. And we're putting the fox on top of this. So this color of the tree that we're doing next is going to be one of the darker things on the picture. So don't hesitate to make this really dark. So I'm just going to be courageous and I'm going to show you what it's like to make it a little darker, like quite a bit darker. I'm going to add a little more black. Because I want these trees to stand out. So I'm just adding a little bit of black at a time. I'm being patient as I mix these colors together. I did add a little more blue here. If you are not getting quite the same color, maybe you want to add a little bit more blue. But that's good contrast, right? Like that is significantly darker than that. And for me, that's what I wanted. Now to have your trees be, more delicate with detail, kind of wipe some of this off and check and see what brush you're using. You don't want your paintbrush to be too goopy with paint. Otherwise your trees are going to come out thick. So just, it's a little paint management, right? So it's like have enough paint on your brush for you to have the coverage that you need, but don't hesitate to wipe some of it off. And then I'm going to layer in just darker trees on top. So I'm going to start with those tree trunks and do placement first. And we're filling our forest here. So find that dark color. And then you can decide how many of these dark trees you want to put in here. And they can go right on top. It doesn't matter. So I kind of just put them, I put 5 in. I told you I was gonna do less. But I'm gonna go to a smaller brush, ladies, just to be in control over these branches. Probably like a 1 or a 2. This one looks good. Which one's this? This is a number 2 brush. So I'm just going to do the same thing, just fill in these darker trees. They can go off your page. You choose the style of trees. If you want them to be simple, you can. However you want to fill these trees in, go for it. But you're going to paint it where you need to, right on top of the other ones. So I'm just leaning back in my chair and just doing a second layer of dark trees on top. I'm doing really simple kind of pine tree styles tonight. I'm not going for my crazy textured branches like I usually do. You can make them as wide as you want, like wide on the bottom. Maybe a little wider on the bottom. That's kind of fun. You can see I kind of came out a little bit down here. This is all off the page for me over here, so I don't have to worry about that. And then just alternate those branches, flicking out to get a little bit of a point on the ends. If you wanted to do textured style branches, you could. Again, just follow any tree style that kind of comes to you. I feel like we all have one style, but then the more you paint, the more you start to kind of branch out, no pun intended, with regards to styles of trees. You know, you can get a little dabby if you want to do a little bit of texturing. But keep in mind, we're going to put in white birch trees on top of this. So these trees, again, are going to be nice and dark and pretty in the contrast for the background. So they're going to look really nice. We don't always put white trees on top of dark trees, so it'll be a fun little pop for us. And our fox will go on top at the very end. So I'm being mindful of how wide my trees are, where I put branches. Filling these trees in like nice and dark entirely, so they're nice and solid in color. Sometimes you can do little shorter branches if you want. Again, it depends on the style of the tree. But just use your own eye and just wherever you might need to put another small tree or another big tree. This is your forest, so you're in control. And this is, again, all background detail. We're going to put a lot over this, so don't aim for perfection right now. If we were leaving these trees as is and they were going to be front and center, I'd say, hey, let's spend a little more time here. But these are not going to be totally visible. It's just a detail in the distance. So I just reiterate that so you don't get worried if you paint something you don't like. Some of these you won't be able to see entirely. It's just a fun accent. And again, I'm leaving some of these tree trunks kind of showing at the bottom. You can bring some of this down, like if you want to cover some of this down, you can bring some of this down. It's kind of fun seeing a little bit of the sky, quote unquote, kind of coming through in the background. Because we're going to put snow down here. We're going to put snow kind of covering the whole thing, which is going to be really fun. A lot of snow, if you're interested. And we'll do that actually, we'll do that after the birch trees. We'll do the snow after the birch trees. Before the fox. So the fox isn't going to have snow on it, which will be really fun. The fox will stand out differently. So there's a lot of little details tonight, but we won't get too hung up on them too much here. And then we're gonna let this dry, and then we'll do our birch trees. So I have some goopy paint in some areas because I was getting a little abstract with some of my trees. So I'm gonna try to like wipe up some of the thicker paint in areas. But we want this paint to dry. I need to do a few touch-ups with regards to like the tops of the trees. Can make the tops of the trees a little more pointy if I need to. Using a small brush to kind of go in and make some detail work, you can. But overall, we want these trees to dry as quickly as possible so we can do our birch trees next. Maybe we'll even do a class show and tell to see how everybody's doing too here. But pretty colors. I'm curious to see how close your colors are to mine. I think everybody's is going to be quite a bit different. I'm even going in the background, ladies, where these other trees are. And if you need to fill in those trees in the background, like I see lots of brush strokes on mine. I'm just doing a little bit of a second coat. You may or may not need that. For me, I have some funky brush strokes. I'm just going to come in and fill in some of this. Not too much, but. All right. So the goal is for this to dry. You can see mine is wet. That's why it's shiny. You can pick it up. We could blow it around. It's going to probably take a couple minutes. Sometimes you can get something to fan it. But it's one of the benefits of acrylic is it does dry pretty quickly. Woo! I just spoke my stuff everywhere. Give me a second here. That's one of the benefits of acrylic is that it dries pretty quickly. All right. So we'll let this dry. I'm gonna grab a paper towel really quick.
Are we showing?
Yep, you can show if you want. Go ahead.
Because I'm not going to want to in a minute.
I got you. I got you.
Nice, Susan.
Oh, pretty ladies.
Yeah, different color trees.
Yeah, definitely. Sharon, yours are a little bit brighter too. It looks nice.
That's mine.
Oh, I love those.
Oh, pretty, Jenny.
Honey,
Nice.
I didn't see it. Oh, now I can see it. Well, that's because Megan is pinned. That's why I can't.
Oh, hang on, ladies. I'll unpin that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You guys can show again. Go for it.
Oh, I like the shape of yours, Susan. Your trees are a little
Just-
different.
Just pine trees.
Yeah,
Just regular pine trees. I know. It's so funny. You can go any way that you want with those, you know?
Yeah.
I love pine trees.
Yep.
Those and birches, my
I know.
favorite.
Well, we got both of them in this class. How about that?
I know. I was excited when I saw them.
I know. It's terrific. All right. So we'll give those a minute to dry. And then we'll shift to doing the birch trees right on top. So you can take a minute to clean your brushes.
Oh, now we need a bunch of white.
Yep.
Ed's been on the phone with his mother for like this whole time.
No
Okay.
kidding.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the heck's going on.
Right. So here's mine. It's going to take a minute to dry. I actually just dumped my entire water cup on my painting, you guys.
I saw that, Megan.
The whole thing.
Oh,
Luckily, my painting, it's literally covered in water. It didn't smudge it or anything.
I know you can't even tell, but I saw it go.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Thrilling things.
Oh, I
It's
know.
gonna
I
take
want
an extra minute to dry, but that's okay. We're good.
Megan, do you get a lot of paint on the metal of your brushes while you're painting, or are you more mindful about trying? not
It
to?
really depends on what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I mean, my brushes are so messy, like, let's be totally honest. Um, let me just show you candidly,
I was curious about that. Oh, yeah, okay.
like they're messy.
Yeah.
So I usually don't, to be frank.
Yeah,
However, if I'm like mixing colors, I think that's when it would happen, you know?
right, right. And then it bleeds through if it's too much up by the
Yeah,
metal, what I've noticed.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So let me get a little bit of fresh water, ladies. We'll let those dry. And then once it's dry, you can start layering your birch trees. So you're gonna do 6 or 7 birch trees layered in on top. Okay, so that's our next step.
Okay.
Okay.
6 or 7 or 8. You can make them as thick or as thin as you want. So in the picture, they're fairly medium in size. So you
Hmm.
could do lots of thin ones, right? That could be really pretty as a contrast to like the thicker trees, as an example. So you can pick and choose in that regard.
1, 2, 3.
I like how they branch at the top instead of
Yeah,
just
we'll
straight
definitely
up
put
on this
branching.
one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
as well.
like it.
Yep. 100%.
Okay.
So use a thin brush of choice and just start thin, and then you can always make them thicker, right? So
Right.
a size 2 brush would be great, 1 or 2. I wouldn't go bigger than a 3 unless you have a nice 3.
Megan, what is this one? Can you see this brush?
Is it flat?
Yeah, you could use the flat side, Susan, not the wider brush stroke. You could use a more narrow brush stroke.
So let's see.
She's talking like this, Susan.
I can't see that, Jenny.
You can't see it?
Nope. Boy,
Okay.
am I blind. Hold
It's
on.
it's pointy and not flat.
Yeah,
Show
it's not
me
the wider side of the brush
again.
stroke, it's the more narrow side per se. So it's when
Show
you
it to
spin
me
your brush in
again,
your
Jenny.
hand.
Not this big flat one, right?
No, I'm using a smaller one, like a more point tip brush.
All right,
Tell
point.
you in just a minute. Okay. So let me see here.
I can't see the number. I literally cannot see the number.
I know this is a number 5, but see how it's
I
a little bit
can't
more.
see the numbers either on mine, Susan.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No,
Yeah.
you're not.
It
I
depends on
used to be
how
able to
loved they
see
are,
them.
Susan.
I used to be able to see them better, but I
Yeah.
also think the brushes were newer.
Yep, agreed. Agreed.
I think it wears off after a while.
They certainly do, ladies. 100%. So mine's pretty wet still, so I'm just gonna wave this around again. Because I just again spilt water all over. But feel free to get started on those birch trees and I'll catch up to you. Really you're gonna do tree trunks first, and you can see at the top of the birch trees, they split. So you don't need to do a straight foam pole. You could do from the bottom up, or you could just do a thin branch at the top and come down, right? Doesn't need to be straight down at the top. And I can do a couple here. See if I can get this to dry. And I'll repin.
And these are sitting in the snow,
They
not
are
on
in the snow.
horizon.
Exactly. Yep, they can come down.
That's
Exactly. So
and they go up above the pine tree.
they're gonna go up and off. Exactly. So I'll do one over here. Well, I always like starting at the top, so I can start at the top. I'm gonna think thin, come down. My paint is still wet, but I'll do it with you anyways. So then I'm gonna just do I'm doing a couple of Ys. Branching down. So you want to think thin branches for the top, and then you can make your trunk wider as you get down. Okay. And I haven't decided how wide I want these to be or not yet. So it's okay just to kind of get started and see what happens. They're definitely wider than that in the picture. So let's make them a little wider. And then you can be playful with where you have like little thin branches. Again, you can do your branches with a smaller brush, or if you feel like you have the right brush, you can do little branches. And you can do one tree at a time if you want. The biggest thing is make sure you're using the right brush. If you need to change brushes, switch. So I'm gonna do one tree at a time and just see how it goes. You can go out wide. You can just do some lower branches. Do some smaller branches. I could use a smaller brush to make these like the canopy wider. So if I wanted to make these birch trees like really more realistic, I can make the branches a little longer. In the picture, they're fairly stubby branches, but you can make them longer if you want to. And I'm using a really gentle hand, soft hand to do some of these branches. Really soft, gentle glide with my brush. Excuse me. Okay. So one tree at a time is okay. Absolutely okay. You can let one dry and come back to it. This is where you can kind of just get into the zone, be a little playful here. Let's see. Let's just do another one right here. You can decide how wide you want your tree trunks to be for your birch trees. They can be a little wider at the bottom. If you want to bring them down onto the ground, like put the base of the trunk into the snow. You can see I did that here. You can barely see it because it's snowy, but you get the picture. Okay. So again, check yourself as an artist. Make sure you're using the right style brush. Very important. You want the branches to be more thin on the top side. You want them to Y. If you love birch trees, you can add as many branches as you wish. That will make your trees look more full. You can use your pinky to stabilize your hand. And your tree branches can overlap. So I'm staggering branches and they're overlapping with the tree next door. Very natural thing that we see, right, with trees. And you can have secondary branches, some smaller branches coming down. This tree needs to be a little wider. So these are some of the things that you'll notice. Okay. I love it. Everybody's in the zone. That's exactly where you should be. Nice. Filling in these trees. We're doing good on time. You can kind of do some short branches. You'll get into a little bit of a rhythm here of figuring out what you want to put and where. You don't need to go too crazy though if you want to. I'm going pretty birch crazy. I think Jenny's influenced me here with the birches. I'm just gonna blame Jenny
Go
kindly.
for it. I love it.
So I might add like a smaller one over here because I feel like I went a little crazy on the left. So it's okay to kind of change things up a little bit. And I can bring it down. Now I have a little bit of green mixing with my birch trees because of my water situation. So you can see they have a little bit of a gray tone, but you're welcome to bring in a gray and kind of bring in a second tone to these birch trees as you're painting and kind of getting that naturally with some of the green. So you don't need to go as branch kind of crazy if you don't want to as I am. This is just what my art is. This is my art that is happening tonight. And sometimes it's fun just to kind of like let your art happen. Maybe we don't put as much snow in areas. We can kind of make some of those choices along the way here. But we'll do snow after. But nice thin brush strokes. Sometimes we get excited and do a thick brush stroke. It's okay. Can always cover some of them up. I might just do like a couple of really skinny ones over here. Like a 1 and a 2. And it's kind of fun to layer in like a skinny one here or there if you wanted to add like a little sapling. Up to you, your options and opinions, if you wanted to do that or not. So I'm just adding like little stick ones, like kind of in between. It's just for me, I feel like I needed just like a little bit more. I like the contrast there, the little one. Sometimes it's fun to kind of think outside the box of what else should be where. It's maybe different than your inspiration. And this is a snowy scene, so a few extra little birch trees here or there is okay. But pause and kind of reflect on your work, ladies. The birch trees are really helping it make it look very snowy. So for me, I'm just getting the base color of the whites and maybe if you're using any grays in, but then you can add in that birch like texture too with like a little bit of gray. So many of you have done that before and you can do that with a smaller brush. I know Susan does pretty well with her birch trees when she paints, if I recall. But you can make a really light gray. And you can just do like little swatches and birch trees actually have like a darker black kind of color too. So you can use a smaller brush and you can just do little accents, like little scratches, little dots and vertical or horizontal scrapes on some of these trees. I'll bring this a little closer down so you can see it. Over here, you can just do, this is like tiny little bit of birch detail. I'm just using the tip of this brush. You want to just use a few bristles, really, just to scratch on a little bit of gray or black detail. See that? Just paying attention to the few bristles on the end of your brush will go a long way. And just doing a soft little smudge or a little dot, and it will give you some of that natural look. Now you can do a vertical one. You could just do a dot or horizontal scratch. You can kind of alternate from the left to the right side of the tree. A grayish black usually works pretty well. In the armpit of each branch, you can add a little bit of darker contrast. We're not going to spend too much detail here. I'll give everybody a few minutes to play with this. And it's a little bit of the paint management of not having too much, not just adding a little here and there. So I'll keep an eye on the clock. I'll give everybody a solid 5 minutes for these birch trees. If you need more time than that, of course, in these classes, always take your time. If you need to spend more time on your birch trees, feel free. This video is being recorded, so don't feel rushed ever in these classes. Just do your thing, and you can always rewatch the video if you need to catch up somewhere. For me, this tree needs to be a little bit whiter, so you'll know maybe where you want to have a little bit of extra white for your birch trees, where you may want to have a little bit of extra gray. But we are going to put in snow on this scene, as well as the fox on top. So again, you don't have to be too critical of yourself here. There is a little bit of gray contrast on the branches, which I'll show you as well. I'll bring this up a little higher to show you. On the inside of some of these branches, you can do a darker outline. So if you want to add a little bit of a light gray outline on the left side of these branches, there's a little shading. So again, using the right brush, I'm just adding a little bit of a gray outline on the top side of these branches. You can see I did that here. In the inspiration, it's a little darker, so you could always make it a little darker. I'll make this a little darker so you can see it. So there's a lot of details if you want to do this amount of detail. I'm just showing you for consideration. So I'm just gonna, on the top side of some of these branches, at least on the top areas, this contract does look really nice. So if you wanted to take a minute to do a little bit of this outlining, I think it's a nice touch. If it's too much for you, you can dim down the color if it's too dark. Kind of helps highlight your birch tree detail. You can do it on the underside. You can be playful where you add it. It's kind of fun. Little artsy. And this is one of the really fun parts about creating and painting things, is that you kind of you may not have had a plan to do this initially, but knowing what you could add to kind of create and really bring your picture to life in a new way. It's these little details that go a long way. And sometimes when you paint by yourself, and I do this all the time, sometimes you don't know what to add, but with a little guidance or with someone else's inspiration, whether it's a color somebody uses, right? That's why we show our pictures off in class, because everybody does things differently. And we do get inspired from one another on our classes because everyone has different ideas they bring to the table. And if I encourage everyone, like yourselves, to use your own ideas, that's where we get inspired and we learn from one another. It's not just me as a teacher, but it's facilitating a space for people to incorporate an idea. And that's why I talk about it so often in these classes, because it allows people to kind of think outside of what they're comfortable with or what they may or may not add. Reminds us basically to it's okay to try this or that. Just kind of nice to be reminded it's okay to do different things every once in a while. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of the birch bark here. This tree looks a little messy. I'll probably put my fox right on top of that tree. And I'm gonna let it dry. So I'm gonna go get some more water, ladies. You keep painting and I'll be right back. Okay. And if you need to do any touch-ups like on your birch trees, like to make the branches longer, this is a great time to do it before we do our fox. So our fox will be next. So I want you to be happy with your birch trees. I want you to be happy with the background. I want you to be happy with everything nearly that we have going on. I'm gonna um any outlining using a small brush, just doing any making your birch trees a little bit brighter, in some areas. This is the beautiful white contrast. We'll do the snow as well. So if anybody wants to get excited and do snow, you can do snow whenever you're ready. You can make it very snowy or minimally snowy. I did snow the other night in one of the classes where I did a water wash with snow. It was really quite pretty. I did a little bit of watering and watery white and did some dabbing. So that was really fun. But I'm just using a little bit of extra white with a small brush to make my trees a little extra brighter in some areas. So that's the detail I'm working on. So you can decide how much contrast you want for your birch trees or not. And look, are your branches long enough in areas? Do you want to make them bigger, smaller, or longer? You want to put a little bird in your tree, maybe? Everybody has all these ideas, right? So I'm going to just do some small dots of snow here and there. I'm just going to use the tip of the brush. You can always use the round end as well. So add in snow where you wish. I'm just doing little tiny dots all over. You can use the bristle part of the brush, or you could do round dots with the end of your brush. The softer you touch your brush to your canvas, the smaller the snow will be. I like to do clusters of 1 or 1, 2. I love seeing different size snow. So on top of your trees, in between your trees. And being really delicate. I love the calm serenity of snow. And I love doing the delicate little snowflakes. You can really create a really fun little fluffy, quite a scene. Just some delicate snow. Going pretty gently tonight. Sometimes it's fun just doing little.
Is it snowing yet? I mean, we're supposed to get snow.
Oh,
It is
really?
Down here, Susan.
It is?
It's just starting, yep.
You're
It's
getting
coming.
snow?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot.
Really? In New Hampshire?
Yep. In
Oh, what are they
Mass.
saying now?
Wow.
Up to 10 inches.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Wow. We're jealous. We're supposed to get like 2 inches on like 2 inches on like, I don't know,
Isn't
Tuesday
it
or something.
Weird, the places that are getting more this year.
I know.
Just to get 3 to 6 tonight. It's been snowing for a couple hours.
Maybe it's a Southern
Has
Vermont
it?
thing. I don't think we're getting much here, Sharon.
Huh.
I would have heard about it. Maybe we're just gonna get like a dusting or something. I don't know.
We got
Mhm.
rain the other day when we were supposed to get snow, so
Yeah, that was gross.
it is. It's gonna
Yeah,
be cold. I'd rather have snow.
Yeah.
Sharon, where are you?
I'm in southern Vermont,
Yeah.
Springfield.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So like we're about a half an hour, 40 minutes north of Brattleboro.
Yeah. Well, I guess the Monadnock area in New Hampshire is going to get it like they always do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want snow? Go to the Keene, Monadnock area of New Hampshire. You'll
Yeah.
get snow.
It always snows
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always. There's something about the way it comes from New York over Mount Monadnock
Wow.
that they get hammered.
I have a
Yep.
friend in Sullivan,
And
New Hampshire.
my sister, who's actually in Mass, but right on the border near Mount Monadnock, wicked amounts of snow.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah, that's where Mount Wachusett is for skiing.
Huh.
I
Out
can
that
still
way.
hear that commercial. That's funny. You said that.
I remember the music.
What commercial?
The Wachusett commercial. Don't you remember that?
Wachusett. Which is so stupid. I've walked up, I wouldn't even say climbed it. I've walked up it a few times.
It's just a little hill, isn't it?
No, it's pretty intense.
Is it?
Yeah, you can see Boston from there, and Boston's like 60 miles away.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Massachusetts gets a bad rap for being all city, and it's not.
Yeah.
The town I lived in Mass was way smaller than Conway. Way smaller.
Yep.
I tell people I live in Conway, even though I don't.
Well, it's easier that way.
Well, I don't want them over here.
You're like, I live in a beautiful, quiet lake area. This
Yeah,
is nice right here.
that's it.
Nobody's here.
She doesn't even
Well,
talk about the lake.
She doesn't. Probably not.
Yeah, this is the real truth too. You know what? I have nothing to be afraid of because there's no way they could afford it. I
No.
couldn't afford it if I had to buy it now.
Yeah.
No way. No
Yep.
way. I don't know. I just lucked out. Was
Timing.
Yep, it was all timing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, not to mention destiny. My grandfather really did live here.
I think
Not
that's pretty
this house.
special.
Yeah.
Pretty special.
Yeah. All right, I think I'm done with the snow and the birch trees for now.
Okay, so we want it to be fairly dry, ladies, before we pencil our fox friend in here. So if you look in the area in the middle, and this is like kind of in this area is where we're gonna put our fox. You get to decide how big you want your fox to be, which is kind of a fun part of tonight's class. You definitely want to make sure it's dry. I'm just holding mine up really close to look. I have some wet areas. I don't know how, but the white is drying pretty quickly. I want it to be like 95% dry before you use a pencil, but we
Mm.
can do a little bit. How wet are you, Susan? Are you pretty wet?
The snow is pretty,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're gonna let the snow dry, and then you can start sketching whenever you're comfortable, but you can think about proportions a little bit and sizing of your fox. So maybe the first thing we can talk about with our fox is the head is on the right side. So if my fox, I'll use my little Buddha again. If my fox is sitting here, the head is going to be over here and the back of the neck is going to come down here. So I want you to figure out like for my fox, it's going to be in the center.
Mm.
But you want to figure out where its head's going to be. Most importantly, the top of its head. And then, because that's going to be the tallest part of the fox. So for me, my fox, I'm going to have him be pretty big. I'm going to have the top of the head be like right here. So I'm just going to make a little pencil mark of where I want the top of the head to be. And the head is kind of like in the shape of a heart. So if you want to make a mild heart shape, you can, and the point is the fox's chin. So this is just helping you. I'm going to use pencil at first, and then maybe I'll do a Sharpie for you all. I'll bring this down a little bit. So here's the top of the fox's head. It's rounded. It doesn't need to be like a perfect heart on the top, but it's really like the pointy chin with the snout is an important part. And then you can kind of find the underside of the chin for like the chest area. So you can see that's the chin and it kind of comes out for the chest. The chest comes down on an angle and then a little leg can come straight down. So this is where, see that? That's the chin and the head. And you can change some of this as you go. But the fox is pretty thick. So you can kind of do the back of the neck, play with the back. And we'll put ears on top of the fox too. So you just want to start with some of these basic elements. And ladies, I've never painted a fox before, so we're doing this all together. Well, actually I have. It's just been a very long time. So you're just kind of getting some of these basic elements in, kind of figuring out where do I come down? How high is the back? Right? And then he's gonna sit. The fox's bum is over here. And then the tail can kind of come down. So you can play with the size of the head. That we'll put the snout in and all of that, but you can see these basic shapes. And then the legs are obviously straight, so you can kind of bring in the back of the leg. Maybe you double it. I'll give it a little bit of a double in size for 2 legs. Then you can do the underside of his body. And it gets a little bit more narrow. So you can, that's why we're playing with pencil. And he's got this hind leg. So you kind of just have to do one part at a time. Be open-minded. Kind of look at the width of the tail, the width of the leg. You can erase as you go. I'm erasing its belly. The belly is a little bit more of an diagonal line versus a rounded belly, so you can play with that. You can play with the angle of the chest curve. So it's just kind of using your eye. The inspiration, again, is in the chat window. And I'll do my tail down here in the snow so you can see it. Let's see if I can do this tail. It's kind of fluffy. There's my tail. And this is all flat right here. Let me bring it a little closer so you can see it. It is interesting. So for me, this back line of its neck, it's too bended down. I gotta have it come out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you can make these modifications. This is an amazing thing where you can use pencil on top of acrylic and you can erase it. It's like amazing.
Had to
But the
change
nice
the
thing is,
belly.
yeah, the belly, you gotta kind of go one line at a time and eyeball it. And then when you think you're pretty close, you can start painting it. It's a little scary to start the painting portion, but you do that when you're ready. I'm bringing its head out a little bit over here on the outside of its body. And we're going to do a base orange for a majority of the fox. So I'm just going to start painting so you can kind of see mine in. To make an orange, it is yellow and a little bit of red. And I'm going to add white to this as well because white will help cover up all the greens behind. So I'm going to make a light orange intentionally. So I'm going to make an orange first over here. And adding white will help cover up everything because then we can kind of change. So there's an orange. I'm going to add some white to it. It's going to be a peachy color. It's okay. It's going to help cover up the background. And I'm just going to start filling in the fox. The fox is going to have white on it too, and I'm going to kind of go around its chin. I think I'm pretty close for the shaping, but I'm just going to kind of outline it and I can make some modifications as we go. So the fox is going to take a couple coats of paint. So I'm just getting in there, painting him or her. Nice thin base coats. So its legs. We'll use darker and lighter colors of orange for depth. Its whole head is going to be painted oranges and whites and darker oranges. So you can paint it all one color right now if you want to. And then we'll add our darker colors in. And the ears are fairly pointy, kind of round, but fairly pointy. My face is pretty big, but it's okay. It's a curious fox. And my tail. There we go. So you can see my fox's body is pretty narrow in areas. This is where you can kind of make some modifications to make it look more full. So maybe the belly needs to come down a little bit more. Maybe the back, maybe kind of looks more of like a cat right now, doesn't it, ladies? The back needs to come up a little higher.
They are kind of cat-like a little bit.
Yeah, they are. I think my head's pretty big, but I can always kind of reshape my head if I need to. But it might look a little bit more trim when I get going here. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna use your base tone orange and then you're just gonna slowly So the fox is full of ton of detail. So there's light oranges and dark oranges. So you're going to find a small brush and you're just going to start to give the coat, give the legs just some brush strokes. You're going to want to play with blending colors here. In the middle of the fox's head, it's a little darker. So once I have that base coat, I'm just going to start to play with where I want some of the darker colors to be. Use a small brush of choice. This one I'm using is pretty big. We'll do the fox's face after, but you can kind of play with where some of the darker areas may be. I'm just kind of being playful around the legs. We could spend hours painting this fox, ladies and gents. So we're gonna take our time just by bringing in a little color at a time. Some lighter oranges, and you can kind of go back and forth between light and darks. It's totally up to you. This is where you can kind of be playful on how you fill your fox in. So you can get your colors to blend together. So you can, while your light orange and your regular orange or darker oranges are wet, you can kind of use the tip of your brush to do some texturing. And you can see how they're all starting to blend together a little bit. The fox can be more red and brown if you want. So if you want to bring in any brown properties, if you have any of that green left over, you can make a little bit of brown. So red and green will make brown. So look what I just did. I just grabbed a little bit of my green here, brought it in with a little bit of my red, and I kind of have this brownish purpley color. This could be good for like some accents, like on the tail, maybe on the back side, right? So we'll do the fox's face after, but if you want to play with some of the body, you can. Maybe a little this darker contrasting, kind of outlining the leg. But the fox is primarily orange or like a burnt red color. So I'm using just the tip of this brush to really just outline the leg and bring in different colors. So play with what colors you want to use, but try bringing in multiple colors to help with some of that blending. This is a kind of a fun technique that will kind of bring lots of textures into your fox's back. And you can see how that nicely kind of painted him or her. And the face is going to be a little bit more tricky. There's going to be a lot more detail. So just play with the body for right now. The chest is going to be a little lighter. So I have a little bit of white. A little bit of white on the underside of the chin. A little bit of white on the chest area. Play with that a little bit. There's little bits of white kind of on the back coat. So it's really just, it's kind of being courageous on how you fill this little guy in. The tip of the tail has a little bit of white on it. And it's kind of fun while the colors are all a little bit wet. Go to one area and come back and I'm using just the tip of the brush. If you need to downsize to a smaller brush, do that. But pretend using the tip, find a couple bristles that you can use as like mole hairs to kind of like give it that fine like texture. I have like crazy glare going on, but I'm going to try to hold it closer so you can see kind of all the colors. It's looking more fox-like. I think it will look more fox-like once I have the face in too. So I'll keep an eye on the clock. I'll give everybody 2 solid minutes to play with the body area. And then we'll do the face together. Just for pacing our time here. And you can always spend more time. I'm just giving folks a few minutes. So play with your darker colors. The legs, if you want to bring in more oranges, check what brush you're using. Do some more texturing, so soft, gentle brush strokes. I have this leg here. Maybe my leg needs to be a little bigger. So these are all the decisions and choices you can make. Let's see, maybe this leg needs to come up a little higher right here. Nice thing is you can change things around if you need to. This leg needs to come forward, I think. So maybe it's the angle that you're using. How's this going? Are you guys having fun playing with all the colors? I feel like the colors are helping, like the lights and the darks.
Yes.
I think bopping from one color to another is like really helpful because it will help. It kind of helps bring in the lights and the darks at the same time, which kind of creates that hair-like texture. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then a little bit of the white, like a little bit of the snowy slashing kind of white, like little white hairs on the back is really quite fun too. Which I'll bring mine a little closer. You can't really see it. And we'll do the face in a minute here. I'm gonna find one of my smallest brushes for the face. And the face is where we can really dial in the snout, which is really gonna help significantly with the size. So the snout is really gonna be the game changer here. And you want it to be nice and narrow. So I found any fine tip brush that you feel like you can really trust is what you want for the face. And the snout is going to kind of start in the middle of the face, and it's going to be narrow. It's going to kind of be like the letter I. You can just start painting a little bit of a line down for the snout. And we're going to do some outlining for the eyes. So it's the snout, and we're going to give it a little bit of a mask. So these foxes have a little bit of a mask. These white lines are going to round the face. And we'll add in some shading too. But the snout, it's going to come a little wider, and we'll give it a little bit of a black nose. You want this to be a little rounded. And these white lines are going to kind of come up. And the eyes of the fox are kind of in the middle of the head. So there's going to be little white lines that kind of create a mask for the fox. So you want to make sure the eye area is big enough so you can put some other colors inside there. And you can give this like a little bit of a hair look. Kind of looks funny right now, but you'll get where I'm going here. There's a little black nose down here we'll put in a minute. While you have the white, if you wanted to kind of outline the inside of the ears, you can. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. I'm just kind of showing you where the eyebrows are, and we'll bring in some more of the darker colors, so don't worry too much. But if it helps you to get grounded on where the eyes are, with a lip and the nose, this is a good next step. With a little bit of black paint, you can do a tiny black dot for the eyes. So you can do little eyes here. And mine has water in it, which is really naughty. So I have to probably redo my eyes. I'm just gonna dab these up really quick. But there's little eyes right in here. And then there's a little nose. Now the nose is down here on the end. And this is what will make it look more fox-like. The nose is floating in the white area, so that makes it look like a fox a little bit more right there. And the eyes can be like cat-like if you want. You could do a little dot with like a little bit of black. So start
Can't
small.
even believe mine looks like a fox.
It does?
I gotta show you. I can't even believe it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Awesome.
Can you see it? It actually
Yeah.
Oh my God, it does look like a fox. I'm gonna remove the pin. Nice job, Susan. So you're gonna do
No,
darker, you're gonna do darker orange under the eyes, Susan.
darker orange.
Under the eyes, yeah.
All right.
So do that whenever you can.
Okay. Oh
So
my.
you can, I'm gonna make a dark orange. I'll show you what that looks like, or even a brownish orange under the eyes. Exactly. Yeah, so you're gonna do a darker color under the eyes above the white. Look at this. I'll make my pin a little bit bigger here. So you can make this, you can make it reddish, you can make it darker. Yep. And then you can do a little white dot inside of the black eyes. Once the black eyes dry, you can do a little white dot, and that will really bring your little fox to life. But you're going to use this darker reddish orange for like the middle of its head. Look at this, he's coming to life. And you can play with the shape of its face, right? You can change the white will really help create cheekbones, right? So use the white to create cheekbones under its eyes, around its mouth. So for me, I could create better cheekbones for my, my heart-like face with a more pronounced snout. You can play with that, ladies. And gents. And then you can do a tiny bit of black inside the ears, just like a little scratch of black or gray inside the ears if you wish. But I'm going to work on those cheekbones for my fox. So if I get a little bit of white here, I can have a little bit more cheekbone. So my snout is a little bit more pronounced. And you can kind of widen the face if you need to. You can bring up the white in color. You can make the snout longer using the white. Just about starting somewhere and making some modifications. Maybe if the white comes up a little higher. This is where you can kind of play around with what colors you use and where. You can do soft kind of hair-like structure. And everybody's animals are going to look different, aren't they, Susan?
Yep.
As always, I love our animal paintings because they're courageous for all of us here. You can do little bits of hair on your fox with a little bit of white and water. Not too bad, not too bad. You can play with the white on the chest of the fox. There's pronunciated white right on the chest. Kind of coming down. Mm. Like the fox is looking at you over his shoulder. See how I added some more white in here? Like the fox is turning. Like there's white on his chest, right? I added a little bit more white, like he's turning towards me. You can play with that a little bit. There's a lot of details we could do here with a lot of shading. You can add a little bit of a darker or a gray underline. This is a big one. Making a gray. You can outline the left side of the fox's chin and face with a little bit of gray. See the shading it just did? Right here. There's definitely shading in this. We don't have to go too crazy, but you'll get the picture. I'll add a little bit more shading on the underside of his chest just so you can see it. I'll use my finger to kind of dab it a little bit. Just a little shading on the side of his chest. I love the white on its tail. You can use a little bit of gray to outline the tail in the snow so it really stands out. Because for me, I want to make sure the tail is nice and bright, which is really fun. So you can play with adding any gray shading. Maybe around its leg. I love the white tail. So for me, I'm going to make my white tail in the snow really bright down here. And I love a little bit of white hair on the back of this fox. So this is where everybody's going to be at their own step. Everybody's kind of playing with their own details. I'm going to do a tiny white dot on the, you can, so with the fox's eyes, I'm going to try in the inspiration, they're kind of outlined. There's like a bottom white circle on the underside of the eye. It's like kind of tricky. And then there's like a dot in the middle.
I couldn't figure out why my eyes look funny. I made him cross-eyed. That's why.
Oh my God, paint right over them. You got this.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
I'm like, why does that look so weird?
Yep, it happens pretty quickly, doesn't it, Jenny?
Yeah, I thought I had it put in the right spot. All right.
So I added too much white, but you can see my eyes are kind of funky. But you can play with the
Okay.
white and the black balance, right? With the eyes.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty, I love playing with animals' eyes because you can really change the persona pretty quickly with the eyes. My fox just got angry. Like, I don't know what just happened. It's okay. I'm gonna let it dry and I'll fix it.
Oh, yeah, I like the white underneath. That helped.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is a little uneven right here. So you'll see where you need to make some adjustments. You can play with the size of your snout. I'm gonna let mine dry and I'll continue to play with it. But for time's sake, we're doing great. I'm gonna go ahead and peel off my tape because I think I'm done all the exterior anyways.
Mm.
I'll fix my eyes. That's really my final step as an artist tonight. But I will pull off my pendant here. One. Right. So it's kind of fun and different outline of a canvas. I can always reshape my fox's face or reshape the eyes, just let things dry. I'll probably, fine touch the nose here. A lot of my black and my white is wet on my inspiration, so I'll let that dry. Look at your fox's paws. Make sure your paws look like paws. I don't think I painted a paw for this one over here. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of a paw in the snow right here. A little bit of an orange paw. But I loved this painting tonight. I hope you all did too. It was really fun and different.
Yes.
And if you need to change the shape of your fox, whether it's the body or the tail or the head, you can use any green paint around you. So the green paint around you is kind of the eraser. So a good example of that is my head is a little too wide over here. So I can easily take a little bit of green paint and reshape the head. Look at that. I was able just to reshape the head over here just a little bit to trim it up. I can take a little bit of black and kind of reshape my nose.
Oh my God. I cannot believe this came out.
Nice.
Good.
Yay!
Look how cute.
I know I want to see it. Hold on. I'm going to remove my pin here. Nice job, ladies. Look at Sharon's. Nice job, Sharon. Your fox is phenomenal. Sharon has like this mature adult fox. I had this little baby in the woods. Susan, what kind of fox do you have?
I would say it's a teenage boy fox.
It's a
and you
teenage
better
boy.
look out.
He's getting into trouble, Susan.
All right.
Amazing.
Better
Jenny,
look out.
nice. Well done, ladies.
I feel like mine looks more coyote-like, but that's okay.
It's okay. Our animals are going to be whatever they want to be tonight. I can tell you that right now.
Mm,
That was fun.
Oh,
yes.
good, ladies. I'm so glad
Good.
you enjoyed it. I certainly did too. For anyone on the recording, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But I want to thank everyone for being here and be sure to save the dates for the February classes. I look forward to seeing you then, if not sooner, at another class here or there.
Thank you,
Right.
Megan.
Thank
Thank you,
you. I'm gonna go ahead
Megan.
and pause the recording.